Chapter 5. Every child's worst fear come alive is the realization of growing up. We are all slaves to time, dragged along the pavements of our destinies, forced to bid farewell to the innocent days of yore now past. As much as we loathe the very notion of admitting it, Bradley and I were growing up and time was trying to tear us apart. At the age of 16, adulthood was right around my corner. Bradley had just turned 7 years old, and while he still had plenty of childhood years left, he wasn't enjoying them as much as other children his age did. He and I had spent our finest years together, but things were starting to change. I wasn't around as much, leaving my brother alone to find ways to entertain himself. He always made a habit of turning to me for ideas for what to do, so trying to find his own entertainment was a skill that Bradley was well out of practice with. I was nearing the end of my high school years. Soon I would be expected to move out of the house for college and start my own life with a promising new career. Bradley hated the idea of me moving away. He kept looking me in the eyes and expected me to reassure him that everything was going to be okay, just as I had always done for him for years. Under normal circumstances, I would have tried wearing a fake smile and telling him what he wanted to hear, but either my fake smile had gotten sloppy or Bradley had just known me long enough to see past such pitiful attempts at deception, and I eventually stopped trying to hide the truth from him. My brother may have still been a kid on the outside, but I had taught him a lot and helped him grow exponentially at heart. He developed the ability to stare straight through any lies I could try to feed him and focus right on the truth lying just behind my pupils. It was a trick he only picked up from being around me for so long. I once tried to cheer Bradley up by telling him we'd always be together, but when he demanded proof, I felt instantly shot down. It was hopeless trying to fantasize for Bradley any further. He knew it was just a matter of time before I walked out of his life, and he just couldn't find the strength to accept it. Neither could I, for that matter. Mom pulled out all the stops in her parenting methods. She no longer cut me any slack like she used to. The more I matured, the more distant I was from her. She must have felt as if she had lost all control over me, but was desperately trying to reel me back in while there was still time. No matter how hard I tried at something, no matter what I had accomplished, she just couldn't accept that I was capable of great things in the end. But they weren't the things she expected me to be capable of. She would criticize any little thing about my character or habits that she could possibly find. If I relaxed for so much as a minute, she would leap onto the occasion and call me a lazy, good-for-nothing hooligan. She told me to get a job so I could make my own money instead of stealing hers, so I found work. She took one look at my paycheck and demanded I work unreasonably harder for a raise. If my grades in school weren't up to snuff in her pitch-perfect standards, she would take away any privileges she could think of from me. Try as I did, I could never force a concrete explanation out of her for why she hated me so much. My most logical suspicion was that she couldn't stand the fact that I had grown up and caught on to her secrets. I debunked all the lies she used to tell me, not in front of Bradley, of course, and gained more confidence to challenge her authority as I drew closer to being a legal adult myself. She knew arguing with me was a battle she was losing fast, but would never give up. However, even after I had unearthed seemingly everything about her, there was always something about Mom that I believed she was still hiding, but I could never manage to find. If there was one last truth locked away in her mind, I just couldn't crack the code yet. If she wasn't so furious about losing me to adulthood, then I knew she had to be mad at me for stealing Bradley away from her. In many ways, I think Bradley was supposed to be her second chance at raising a perfect son. My suspicions weren't so far-fetched after all. She really did grow tired of me, tired of the fact that I rebelled against her wishes and would never turn out exactly the way she wanted. Now I had influenced Bradley to find his own identity too. He wanted to follow in my footsteps, which drove our mother to her breaking point. She became very strict, overbearing, and overprotective of Bradley. She was desperate to salvage what she could of his character and mold him into the angel of a son that I failed to be in her eyes. Bradley had chosen me over her in so many aspects of his life, and as a result, she forced her parental authority upon Bradley's life, trying to reassert her maternal dominance. But it only pushed Bradley further away from her and closer to me, and with time pulling me away from him, Bradley had to retreat back into his previous fears, feeling more alone than ever before. It was breaking my heart to watch our mother destroy Bradley's hopes and dreams and see him quickly begin to lose faith in the world and in himself. But no matter what I did to try and protect my brother from our mother's wrath, she continued to torment Bradley in spite of my interventions because she knew it wouldn't be long before I moved out and Bradley would have no distractions or resistance to discipline. Over the years, Dad changed as well. He had become much more withdrawn, silent, and unmoving. He took no part in disciplining Bradley like Mom did. Instead, he would simply turn away and ignore it, despite any cries for intervention. He became firm as stone, unwilling to say or do anything to help us. Dad would often sit alone in the backyard or in his room, reading a book or just staring off into the distance. We never knew what Dad thought about whenever he spaced out, but he would get pretty angry if we ever disturbed him. I believe Dad was growing fed up with his life. Mom's constant berating of Bradley and me annoyed him. Mom was a nervous wreck, slowly unraveling. It had been far too long since they had done anything romantic together, and I think the love between them was fading fast. He was growing into a tired, bitter old man. My father and I had grown distant from each other. We stopped spending quality time together when I was 13. Dad tried to bond with Bradley, but my brother was growing more attached to me instead. I felt bad for nearly stealing my father's only other son away from him, but that was only because Dad left us alone and wasn't controlling like Mom was. Between school and work, I barely had time to myself. Mike and Nathan were so caught up in their own pursuits that I barely saw them anymore. Bradley was frequently occupied by his own schoolwork as well, but he at least had friends of his own to play with and time to spare. On the nights where I wasn't home and he was bored, Bradley would browse through the stuff in my room, sort of like he used to do as a toddler. Only this time, Bradley would look for anything out of the ordinary. That was his means of finding out recent events in my life without having to talk to me directly. I still didn't like the idea of Bradley snooping through my stuff, even if I did trust him with most of my secrets. In the old days, anything that was in his reach was in danger of being broken, but now he could dig up any sort of dirt he wanted to on me to use either as blackmail or more often as a way to strike conversation with me, usually regarding aspects of my life I didn't want him to know about. One particular night, he opened the drawer to my nightstand and found a lonely rose with a small card attached to it with a velvet ribbon. Bradley had found the rose I was planning to give to a certain girl at my school. Her name was Monica. She and I took the same math class and had been study partners all year. We shared the same interests in music, literature, and the same hatred for irresponsible modern celebrities. We exchanged bits and pieces about our lives when I took her out for an Italian dinner one evening. It was my way of saying thank you to her for helping me ace our math exams, but I was under the impression that she saw the dinner as a date. Prom night was coming up, and I was planning on giving her the rose as a means of asking her to accompany me to the event. Bradley's childish mind interpreted my complex connection with Monica as a full-on relationship. He teased me at the prospect of having a girlfriend, just as any younger sibling usually does. I don't know why I denied his childish allegations at the time with such fervor. I liked Monica, but didn't know myself if I really had any serious feelings for her. Maybe the two of us going to prom together would change all of that. On the day I planned to give Monica the rose and card, I had originally been planning a direct approach. However, I just acknowledged the prospect that she may already be going with someone else to prom, and I was not about to make a fool of myself by getting rejected. Even if she wasn't taken, I didn't want to unintentionally exaggerate my feelings towards Monica with the ever-so-romantic rose, and make her believe there was more to how I felt about her than I did in reality. So I postponed the delivery indefinitely and stuffed the rose and note combo into my locker just before Monica arrived to greet me as she usually did in the morning. However, things took a massive turn at lunch when Monica greeted me with not only a dazzling expression of flattery on her face, but also my faded gift in her hands. Monica blushed and hugged me, declaring that nothing would make her happier than to go to prom with me. While I certainly enjoyed her passionately embracing me, I forced aside my feelings of relief and bliss subconsciously as I tried to piece together what had just happened. It was fantastic that Monica wasn't already taken, and even more so that she said yes. But how in the world did she receive my gift without me giving it to her? I had one suspect in mind, and my suspicion was confirmed later that afternoon when I checked my locker and found a new note that hadn't been there this morning. The note read, "You're welcome," in a handwriting I immediately recognized as Bradley's. The furious minority inside me wanted to pulverize him for not only breaking into my locker as well as Monica's, but also taking a monumental risk and forcing an event that I was more than certain was never meant to come true. However, I dropped my anger not long after. My ambitious brother's matchmaker scheme had just won me a date with Monica, and for that I couldn't help but feel grateful. I confronted Bradley about his Cupid work at the end of the school day, and he was awfully proud of himself. I was stumped. How did he know I was having second thoughts about asking Monica to prom? And more importantly, how was he so sure that it was going to work? When I presented these questions to him, he calmly stated that he knew I was unsure of myself when we had our argument the day before. He didn't know for sure if Monica would say yes, but he decided to take the risk because he wanted me to be happy. He wanted me to try something and risk facing rejection instead of being too afraid and losing my chance forever. Bradley already knew my locker combination from one of his previous raids of my personal belongings, but how he got a hold of Monica's combination is something I still wonder to this day. Prom night arrived and Bradley took the liberty of inspecting my entire outfit beforehand. Everything from the correct method of tying my tie, to the polish of my shoes, to ensuring my jacket and pants were lint-free. He picked up the expertise on proper formal attire from reading one of Mom's magazines she left on the coffee table one dull afternoon. I was embarrassed at the idea of allowing my younger brother to approve of my outfit, but he humorously teased me as he always did, by stating that there are many more things I could do that night to embarrass myself besides letting him fix up my clothing. Ignoring his innocent taunt, I walked out of the house and made my way to my car when Bradley almost tackled me to the ground, reminding me not to forget my corsage. I smiled, grateful for everything he had done for me that day. After a meaningful hug, we said our goodbyes, and I drove off to pick up Monica and headed to the prom. The night went even better than I had imagined. Monica and I danced for hours, from tunes that fueled our adrenaline with every step, to the slower pieces where we carefully waltzed, let our hearts take flight, and left the world behind us. On that night, I let all of my doubts, my regrets, and my fears drift away just as the leaves rode a modest autumn breeze out of sight. Embracing the majesty of the night with Monica delighted my soul like no other. All of the memories I had made with Bradley remained unmatched previously, but that evening rivaled the undefeated record as it captured my happiness with ease. After the prom ended, I treated Monica to a dinner at her favorite Chinese restaurant. One of the aspects of Monica's character that fascinated me the most was how diverse her interests were in other cultures. She appreciated the entire world for its ideals in art, history, architecture, music, and cuisine. When I was around Monica, the world didn't seem like such a vast place. She brought everything into perspective in a way no other person I knew could match. After dinner, Monica and I took a gentle stroll around the park and talked. The plethora of stars in the night sky decorated the central fountain and lit up the water's surface in a beautiful display the likes of which I had never seen. In a way, I almost felt intellectually inferior to Monica. She was so well read that I was surprised we made conversation at all. When I confessed my doubts to Monica, she simply dismissed them, claiming that she enjoyed my company for her own reasons. I enjoyed learning more about the world through her cultural expertise, and she loved how bluntly I criticized the common world. She found it amusing. The night grew later, and we decided it was time to turn in as a chill in the air descended upon the park. I drove Monica home and walked her up the driveway to her house. We stopped in front of the door and faced each other, and our eyes met instantly. Monica thanked me for a wonderful night, and we slowly embraced each other one last time to counter the freezing evening air with our combined body warmth. But that warmth overwhelmed me. I shut my eyes for a moment, long enough to feel Monica's lips gently brush mine. I relaxed and embraced our first kiss for a few seconds of uninterrupted passion. I blushed slightly as we said our goodbyes, and she disappeared into the darkness of her abode. I wanted to remain there on her porch and savor the moment that had just taken place, but the night grew colder with every passing minute. I drove back home and pulled up to a pitch-black house. All the lights were off, indicating that everyone was asleep. Surprisingly, Bradley wasn't up at the hour, anxiously awaiting to hear all about my evening. I didn't think much of it, though. I was sure I would have to spill all the details the next day at breakfast.